Welcome to another episode of the Programmatic Digest podcast. I'm your host, Hélène Parker, and today we have Jayson Dubin. Did I pronounce it right?
You did, correct.
Perfect, perfect. He is an Army Swift Knife from Playwire, or commonly founder and CEO. How you doing today, Jayson?
Good, good. Swiss Army knife. You
Swiss.
wouldn't,
What did I
but
say?
that's okay.
Did
That's
I
okay.
dis? Did I
You know what?
dyslexia?
We're starting out good. I like it. You know what? It's a
And
new
you know what?
word.
I'm not even going to edit this out. It's just what it is. It is what it
Exactly.
is. So,
Exactly. Like Adtech. It's messy, but it works.
yeah, it is lovely to have you here. Thank you so much for your flexibility. Before we get into today's conversation, I want to do a special thank you to our sponsor, Jobs in Adtech. If you have not checked out the website yet, jobsinadtech.com. Now, Jayson, you have a fascinating story, and we're going to ask you in a few seconds. But for the listeners, today is all about brand safety, what it means programmatic versus direct. And then we're going to touch on in gaming, the gaming industry that we heard so much about, the metaverse, things like Roblox, and that we're not hearing anything about. Maybe it's a media fault, maybe it's not. So Jayson is here to clear out, demystify some of those for us, and then we'll end with a word of wisdom. All right. So Jayson, again, thank you for being here. How about you tell us a little bit about yourself? How you landed in programmatic? Did you wake up one day when you were maybe 13 and said, "I'm gonna work in programmatic"?
Uh, Absolutely not. Believe
Okay.
it or not, I was supposed to be a dentist. That
Ooh.
was it wasn't my calling. It was more my family lineage. So my
Okay.
father
Okay.
was a dentist, my grandfather was a dentist, my great grandfather's dentists and teachers somehow is what makes up my family composition. I started out doing that and realized that was just not my calling. Eventually
Okay.
got into digital media and marketing, and ultimately my first job right out of college. I was really a graphic designer,
Ooh,
uh,
cool.
making catalogs and living in New York.
Uh-huh.
And I think I was at Bloomingdale's at the time, and I self-taught myself how to write code, right? So I'm writing PHP and MySQL and a bunch of other things. And while I'm making these catalogs and doing this website for Bloomingdale's, a buddy of mine goes, "Hey, there's this startup. They're in New York.
Mhm.
They're looking for people who understand the internet." And this is 1996, 97. So it was brand new. And
And
most people did not. And I was a little bit sales, an outgoing person, even though I was, as a technologist. So I interviewed at this company, and that startup happened to be Yahoo.
oh, yeah, yeah.
So exactly. So I worked at Yahoo for a while. So the rise and fall, right? The dot com. And then from there, I went to a company called the Globe, and I
Mhm.
became VP of this company running their media division. And the media division was comprised of a few print periodicals around video games.
Mhm.
So as that
Mm.
business grew, I said, okay, let's take the print and move it over to digital, right? So online, because that was my background. So I hired a bunch of editors. I made a bunch of websites. I bought content and just couldn't get enough traction. So I just did, we had the advertising dollars. We just couldn't get enough eyeballs to make it
Right.
work.
Mhm.
On the flip side, I have a bunch of websites asking me, hey, why don't you represent our websites to the agencies? Because if you work in digital media, realize, they like to work with the bigger companies, the bigger brands. They'd rather work with one big partner than a lot of small ones. And my initial reaction was, no, thank you. We only do our owned and operated websites. And as things got harder, I said, wait a minute, they have what I need. You have what I want. Wrote up a business plan, went to the CEO, and the CEO, as I said, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. Fair enough, right? Lesson learned. At that time, vertical ad networks had not existed. So basically went out, fast forward, long story short, I tried to buy the assets of the Globe, ended up banging on a lot of doors, couldn't raise enough money, got a small friends and family round, and started the first ad network ever for video games. And that's how I kind of got into this industry. And I can go further from there, but I think that's kind of a good stopping point to let you know how I got into this industry. It was really, and I find this for most entrepreneurs, at least for my businesses, most people don't come up with like this amazing next idea. There's an opportunity and you can fix and fill that void. And that's really what it was. We had publishers who needed someone to represent them. They didn't understand the technology, they didn't have the sales, they know the agencies, and it really selling is a much different business from content creation. So that's how I got into this business.
Yeah. Wow, that's fascinating. And I won't tell you how old I was in 1996.
Fair
It's pretty young,
enough.
pretty young, very young. But well, thank you for letting us know. And before we get into what does Playwire do and like the pros and cons of this industry, can you define to can you tell us and define as if you're defining it to a 5-year-old your what your day-to-day looks like?
My day to day.
Mhm.
Uh, I would say is my day to day as a CEO, as
Mhm.
I tell my children, is it's a lot of meetings.
Oh, okay.
It's a lot. I would say it's majority meetings.
Yeah.
Um, I would say everyone at my company from the C-level down is a player coach. So
Mhm.
everyone here sells, everyone here operates,
Mhm.
everyone here executes.
Got it.
Um,
So everybody's hands on keyboard basically.
that or in market or selling or pitching or educating or creating. We have this thing that I call, can you, if you're especially, I'm talking about the executive level, you
Right.
need to be able to write the playbook and execute on the playbook, right?
Mhm.
If you cannot do those two things, you're not sitting in an you don't belong in an executive level seat. And believe, and we use terms like seat and bus. The bus is the company and the seat is the position. So are
Mhm.
you on the right bus? Or are you in the right seat? So my day-to-day mainly is dealing with my executive team, talking to my largest customers,
Mhm.
obviously trying to get new customers,
Mhm.
and just understanding the environment, right? It changes. Ad tech or digital media is the only industry in the world that literally changes every day, every week, every month. And if you're not planning a year or two out, you got
Mhm.
a huge.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. It's because we're so heavily influenced by technology itself. I think that's what makes it exciting. But if you're not careful, it can be very, very draining. It could be
Oh,
like very draining.
very true.
And we can talk about what that looks like because you have a lot of wisdom to share with us. But I'd love to hear a little bit more about like you talk about servicing your clients. Like, what does the client of Playwire look like?
Mhm. I would say we have three tranches of
Hmm.
clients. We'll talk about the smallest one. Hey, I'm a single entrepreneur. I
Hmm.
have a blog
Hmm.
reminiscent of yours, and I need to make more money on my site. So Playwire, in its essence, it's really simple. We
Hmm.
help publishers or content creators, that's anyone who makes content, whether you're CTV or web or app, make more money from their user base
Yeah.
and lower their costs, right? So we take away all the tech debt, we take away all the operations debt, ad serving, all the complications that come with advertising. So that's kind of client number one. Hey, I'm a single entrepreneur and I have a small website doing 50,000 page views or more a month.
Hmm. Hmm.
We'll then have what I would say a mid-sized client, which is, hey, I have anywhere from 3 to 4 employees or what have you, all the way up to like 15. And I'm doing anywhere from call it $100,000 a year up to call it $1 million a year in ad
Okay.
revenue.
Hmm.
And they're at a good size, but ad tech's complex, right? You got open bidding, Amazon TAM, header bidding, you got pre-bid, you need identity solution, you need all this technology to make sure everything works. You got to make sure the pipes are connected. And then on top of that, you need direct sales. So that is another client that we service. And then we have enterprise level clients, which are, hey, I am a large conglomerate.
Hmm.
Advertising is a secondary business to us. We know we can make money from it, but it's not our focal point. So a great example would be Redfin.com, the largest real estate app and website in the world.
Hmm.
All the ads are powered by Playwire.
Hmm.
So we have thousands of clients that we work with in all different kind of shapes, colors, and sizes. And really, my job is really to make their life easier. They can focus on making great content.
Hmm.
So that's selling their space or their audiences to the agencies and brands, making sure their technology is hooked up accurately, while the pipes are working, and then educating the marketplace about these unique audiences. That's really what Playwire does. And those are the audiences, and those are the clients that we serve.
Got it. And where did play Playwire came from? What's
That's
the
all right. So
story?
how much time do we have? That's another funny long
Try your
story.
best to give it to me in 1 minute or less.
All right. The company used to be called Intergi, Intergi. And when we first started the company, it came from synergy and internet, Intergi. But
I like it.
Intergy was taken. So I said, who cares? It's a name. Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
I'm in San Francisco one day, and I'm sitting next to a gentleman by the name of Dario Rositi. hi Dario, if you're listening,
Mhm.
he headed all of activations and media buying at OMD. And we're sitting at this convention and he goes, Jayson, you have the dumbest name I've ever heard. And I'm like, Dario, what do you know? You don't know, it's a name. You've heard Yahoo, whatever. There's all these abstract names. He's like,
Google, whatever.
yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, no, Jayson's a stupid name. And I'm like, I don't believe it. So on the other side of him was another gentleman. He goes, partner X or gentleman X. Have you ever heard of the name Intergi? He goes, no. Are you sure you've never heard of the name Intergi? He goes, no. It
Oh,
happened to a
ouch.
buyer from Nissan.
Mhm.
And he goes, they are your large, you spend more money with them than any other company, and they are your best performer.
Mm.
The next day, I went and changed the name and said, we're getting rid of Intergi. And the reason Playwire came to be was we were getting into video at the time. We'd made our own video player, and
Mhm.
we were transitioning from display to video as kind of like a new kind of I guess road to go down for the company.
Yeah.
So it sounded techy, it made sense, and then ultimately that became the name of the company, which is now Playwire. It sounded good and it works.
Yeah.
It's easy to spell and it's easy to say.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Playwire is nice. It's nice. Like Playwire it has a nice tone to it.
And a nice good ring to it.
Yeah, exactly. So what is so we're gonna talk about brand safety here a little bit. What does brand safety looks like to you and to some of the clients? Because there's a ton of definition out there. But for the sake of the listeners, and I'll talk about the listeners, there's 50% that are in C suite and then
Mhm.
50% that are programmatic ninjas in the trenches. But because as a consulting agency, we train people with no marketing background into the programmatic world for their sake. Let's define a little bit what that represent for the publishers that you're working with. What is brain safety? How do you help with brain safety?
Sure, absolutely. So brand safety takes many different flavors for us personally, 'cause, right? We not only do we work in what I would call the normal world, we also work in the
Mhm.
copy world. So brand safety, and it also has to be family friendly, right? So there's two
Yeah.
aspects to
Okay.
that. So let's just start at the basics, right? So at a bare minimum, we'll call it table stakes, a publisher and the technology and the ads that are delivered, and we spend a lot of time doing this, is are the ads in view, right? So everyone talks about viewability. Is it over 70% viewable? Um, are the ads that we're serving seen by an actual user? So that, that's the number one for brand safety. Number two is proper categorization,
Mhm.
right? Are you making sure, you don't want to call a duck a goose or a fox, a fox a bird, whatever you want to call it.
Mhm.
So you want to make sure like the websites are categorized correctly. So is it a movie site? Is it a kid site? Is it a gaming site? Is it a mom site? You then get into things like IVT, invalid traffic, and bot traffic, and we use a lot of our own technology, but we also use a lot of partners for that, like
Right.
Oat
Mm.
or Human or Clean and IAS and lots of other third parties to make sure that, hey, are the ads not only being seen, but are they actually real users, right? That's a big deal these days. So we want to make sure the IVT is below 2%. We want to make sure the viewability is over 70%.
Mhm.
And then lastly is we want to make sure the content is around valid, clean content, like no expletives, no pornographic material, things of that nature. And those are your basic parameters that we look for
Mhm.
on its site. And we think about what Playwire does, we provide a lot of these services, if not all of them, to the publisher, other than the content they make, right? So
Got it.
we're
Got it. Okay.
providing the technology for viewability, providing the technology for IVT.
Mhm.
We're creating the ad units to make sure they only load in view. We make sure the
Mhm.
ads don't refresh out of focus. You know what that means, out of focus?
Nope.
So weird stat is most people have like 20 tabs open.
Mhm.
And, I'm sure
Plus
you're looking
some.
at this right now, I guarantee it.
Plus some. Yeah.
Some vendors will let the ads refresh out of focus when the tab, it's called out
Oh,
of focus,
yeah,
when
I
the
heard of
tab
that.
is open. So you might have an ad just kind of
Like
going and out.
viewability is 100%, but the tab has been
Yeah,
open for a few days, basically. Okay, got it.
exactly.
Yeah.
So we make sure the ads don't refresh out of focus and things of that nature. So there's a lot of tools that we impart, and we're working hand in glove with the agencies, with the brands, and especially with the SSPs and the DSPs to make sure, and they're holding us accountable. Everyone's holding everyone
Yeah,
accountable.
yeah, yeah,
We're
rightfully.
tracking them, they're tracking us, and that's how this whole thing works.
Got it, got it. And Talking about category, I had the incomparable Aisha White on the podcast, and we talked about blacklist and what it meant, and how some keywords specific to someone's race or identity or ethnicity are part of the blacklist, and those are blacklists of blacklist. We've worked with really big DSPs, so I'm on the buy side, you're on the sell side, but like, how what does that represent when you hear words like black, queer being blocked, like in a universal block list? Do you have any publishers that maybe check off that box, and how do you protect their identity and not being part of that blacklist dilemma?
Yeah, so inclusion and exclusion lists are a big deal. They really
Mhm.
are.
Yeah,
And
especially in this cookieless world. Like, I'm hearing a lot more of it.
yeah, there's actually three types of lists. There's
Mhm.
an inclusion list, there's an exclusion list, and there's actually a gray list.
A gray
And
list. What is that?
there's a few, yeah, it's kind of like you're on like in probation, or I'm not even sure honestly what it means, but I know they exist.
Mhm.
And these lists exist at on multiple different levels, and that's where it really gets complex. So meaning you've got lists at the holdings company like an OMG or Horizon or Omnicom, and they have like this universal list of sites that they either work with or don't work with. And if you're not on that list, you know, a buyer can buy with you, but it will never transact.
Mhm.
Then the DSPs have the same list, and the SSPs have the same list, and then it could be client specific. So part of our job is a little bit of a whack-a-mole is trying to figure out, one, where these lists exists.
Mhm.
Two, is my website,
Oh,
you
on
know,
my client's website, on that list.
exactly,
Yeah.
and you wouldn't even know it, right? And there might be like legacy things, and someone had done something 5 years ago. But agencies like elephants, they don't forget. And once you're on that list, you're on that list. So it's
Yeah,
our
that's
job
for sure.
to be big enough to have those conversations at the holdings company, at the SP, saying, what are these lists? Who is
Mhm.
on it? And sometimes they'll tell you, and sometimes they don't. But where it gets even more complicated is what you just stated, which is, hey, I have a campaign and I'm going to use certain keywords that
Mhm.
we want to detarget an exclusion list, right? So think about, and this is a real world example. We had a gaming client, I'm not going to say their name for this for
That's fine.
protect their
Yeah.
identity.
Yeah, of course.
And the agency runs a campaign, and and it's a first person shooter game. It's all about like shooting, right?
Mhm. Yep,
And
yep.
on it, they blocked words like shooter or gun
Yeah.
or hate or words. And they were like, well, how come this is not scanned? I'm like, well, every piece of content you want to be around has those words on it because they're all about first person shooters and their games. So they had the best intentions, but the road to hell is paved with good intentions, right? So uh ultimately, we had to have a conversation, and we had to go back, and we had to, advocate for it. But those things happen all the time. And that's kind of what makes our job hard, is you've got these high level decisions being made with the best intentions, but at the end really don't help you accomplish your goals.
Is that why, because I attended the Navigator in New York last November. It's a conference held by the Beeler Tech team. And man, so it was predominantly sell side and tech, I'm not gonna lie. And a lot of the discussions that I was part of included direct versus programmatic. It's like, no, we're making more money direct. And programmatic is just setting us up, for failure. It's not really encouraging our business, our values, and things like that. So what's your point of view on that? Programmatic versus direct.
When you say programmatic, are you talking like open bidding and header
Open
bidding?
web, yep. The
Yeah.
open internet. Well, yeah, open internet, open web.
I think they both serve a function and a purpose.
Mhm.
Um, I think, for businesses like ours, we if you want to buy Playwire, it's and the portfolio of sites that we and the verticals that we work with, whether you're kids or real estate or entertainment or moms,
Mhm.
it's way more efficient for a buyer to buy us programmatically.
Mhm.
However, it also comes with a lot of ambiguity,
Mhm.
with a lot of lack of transparency.
Yeah.
Are my ads viewable? Are they the best they can see? The clients that work best with us, like Kellogg's or Hasbro or McDonald's, we use the term what's called customizable scale.
Mhm.
You want to buy just what I'll call spots and dots, which are basically like banners, called IB banners.
Mhm.
You're, you're probably better off buying us through the open market, right? It's more efficient. you can get your and truth be told, the way my definition of open market is nothing more than ad networks of old. These are people trying to back into some kind of conversion metric somewhere in some kind of conversion funnel.
Mhm.
The people who work closely with us create these unique ad units that we will run across our portfolio of sites that get high viewable, that are very highly engaged, very high in view, and we
Mhm.
kind of have a lot of reporting, a lot of analytics. We're making sure their ads are seen first. So there's a big differentiation, which is like, hey, I'm willing to pay more to have a direct relationship and a direct conversation with your consumer versus I want nothing more than a transaction and I don't care where it comes from.
Mhm.
That, in my mind, is open web versus direct.
Got it. Got it. Okay. You know, you made me think about a recent article that came out from the Ad Exchanger. I think it was Sarah Sluice. And she wrote about hmm, oh man, I have to remember, but it was talking about how the industry are duplicating some of this inventory on the open internet. Have you read it? I gotta look
When
up the
when you say
article.
duplicating, what do you mean?
So she mentioned how let me look it up real quick. She mentioned how the industry started with we moved from waterfalls into open bidding, but the ultimately thing is here's the attack of the clones, programmatic hidden scourge of bid duplication. And she talks about how bid duplication is getting extreme. Buyers are staying to take notice of this strange behavior, and it's basically talking about how um, oh man, I wish I had a better way to explain it, but how header bidding is not what it is for buyers. Um, and then she touched on traffic shaping,
Mhm.
which I wasn't very familiar with that. Like, can you speak a little bit of like shaping? Obviously, I'm putting you on the spot here, okay? And
No, no
I
worries.
should have
No
taken
worries.
better notes of the articles too. But like, can you talk a little bit about traffic shaping? Because I feel like that's something like went above my head.
Yeah, so header bidding was really just created to combat Google. So the way Google works
Right.
is, they
Mhm.
do an auction and they have something what's called a second price auction, which is like,
5 second
hey,
concession. Mhm.
I'll bid 30 cents. Google does a bid at 25 cents. Header bidding is 30,
The
uh,
b
bid
the
for 30
auction.
cents and they do it for 31 cents. So it's kind
Mhm.
of like, how do we combat that? Um, so that's header bidding. But traffic shaping is really the best. Again, I'll use, like I was talking to a
Mhm.
5-year-old, is really
Mhm.
making sure you're fishing where the fish are is number one, and then also cutting down on what I would say um, extraneous bids and ad calls, right? So you've got two conflicting parties. You have the demand and the supply side. The demand side is trying to buy it as efficiently as possible, and the supply side is they're trying to buy it as cheap as possible. And the supply side is trying to sell it as much as possible. And unfortunately, the way the system works today is publishers benefit from the more ad calls they make and the more times and people that they have in the bid stream, the higher the rates will be.
Mhm.
However, there's a lot of waste that goes on like,
Oh, so
QPSs.
the bid duplication comes into like there's the multiple times that a publisher, well, not a publisher, SSP is making that bid across.
Right. So, you're not hitting the servers as many times, right? So you might do an auction to,
Mhm.
10 SSPs, and then you
Yeah.
re-auction those 10 SSPs, and next thing you know, it kind of spirals out of control from there. So, bid shaping is really the ability to kind of put the right buyer in front of the right ad call and kind of
Mhm.
connect those dots a lot quicker and a lot more efficiently
Mhm.
than than normal, right? So our goal, and especially with SPO, you know what that stands for,
Mhm.
supply
Yes.
path optimization.
Yep. I'm a big
You
fan of
know,
SPO.
we're
Yep.
working very closely with the DSPs and SSPs to cut down on all these extraneous bids
Mhm.
to cut down on carbon footprints and making sure we're putting the right buyer in front of the right audience and trying to connect those dots as quickly as possible.
Mhm. Mhm. Got it. Would you say that's also more sustainable for the planet?
I would 100% say that, yeah.
Yeah, because like we're not duplicating the recalls and the calls.
Well,
Um,
it's less for everyone, right? It's less ads
and
for
it's
us, less cost for us, less cost for them.
Mhm.
There's less server bandwidth, right? It costs
Yeah.
them money to take all these bids
Oh yeah,
and
for sure.
process.
Mhm. That's
queries.
absolutely right. That's
Yeah.
absolutely right. So what and I'll end we'll end this discussion with this, right? So what does that mean? Tell us your maybe how is that affecting the gaming industry specifically, right? Last year we heard a lot about Twitch, Roblox, Metaverse, and how advertisers should look into that as a placement or as a new channel or whatever is a new sexy thing. Um, so what's your maybe give us like a quick like okay this is what you should know about where we stand as an industry when it comes to the gaming inventory, or maybe give us an example of what gaming is, because apparently it's way beyond the PSP, the Xbox, because I thought that's way but apparently it's way larger. And I read a study that says that women are bigger gamers than men in general. I think it was from I can't remember. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's a fair statement. I would say, gaming has always been like this, like there's a nebulous criteria about what a gamer is, right?
Mhm.
I would say gamers today are it's almost become ubiquitous. Like everyone's a gamer in some way, shape, or form. You ask someone like, "Are you a gamer?" Like, not really, but meanwhile they're playing Candy Crush on their phone.
Yeah.
That
Yeah, you are.
technically is a gamer, and the number one gamers are actually household moms, believe it or
Yeah,
not. I
yeah.
don't know if I
Yeah,
use that.
okay.
I say that anymore. I don't know. Anyway, yeah. So I would say gaming in general, in my opinion, is I personally love gaming,
Mhm,
and not so much because I'm in it and it's a little bit self-serving, but it is the only medium, in my opinion, actually not
mhm.
in my opinion, it is factual, that the user needs to engage and do something. You need to lean in. You need to kind of
Like you do okay.
engage with the content. You need to press something. You need to kind of think about what you're doing, and it engages the user versus just you're kind of in a more of a sit back, relax
Mhm.
situation when you're reading content. Gaming, you're kind of leaned in, right? You're playing your game, you're going through a level, you're trying to solve a puzzle, whatever it may be. I think that's why gaming is so interesting to
Yeah,
advertisers, is that
okay,
it keeps
okay.
people's attention, right?
Mhm.
Right now, you look at anyone, they're watching TV, they're on their phone, they have the iPad, there's a million distractions. Gaming, you literally are present while
Like your attention is there.
content.
Like you
Correct.
have to pay attention to your game. Mhm.
So I think that's why it's become so interesting to advertisers. It's become a bigger audience, both financially and a footprint size than even the movie or entertainment business, right? So gaming's become bigger than that. Probably one of the biggest industries in the world, if not the biggest industry.
Well, yeah.
And we have these new contenders like Roblox. Roblox is a partner of ours,
Mhm,
and their concurrent users is going through the roof these days.
mhm.
And what we're seeing is a renaissance where, Roblox is really relatively known for younger children or
Yeah.
kids.
Mhm.
However, we're
Your
seeing
teens.
teenagers
Yeah,
and,
yeah. My nieces are teens. They about the Roblox life.
right, because Roblox was able to take this
Yeah.
kind of metaverse
Mhm.
and let people make whatever they want out of it.
Mm.
And the beauty for brands is they can actually now create great content and great experiences for users, like we've done for Craft and for other clients, where they can bring their brand, allow users to engage,
Mhm.
and it's kind of a conversation and they're leaned in. So I think that's why gaming's so interesting
Yeah.
to that's our stance on it.
But here's a question that just popped into my mind because as a trader, so I traded for many years in DSPs, multiple of them at the time. I guess this may be an outdated question, but like gaming makes a lot of sense for brands, but how do we protect the brand's integrity without disrupting the gamer's attention, right? Like I actually don't play a lot of games. I can't even give you an example of what I would play. But let's say we play Candy Crush on the phone and then I
Mhm.
see a ad pop up. That's annoying. Actually, my daughter plays on her iPad. And whenever we play Sonic, because we're a big fan of Sonic, I mean, once in a while when she loses, we're popped into that annoying ad that we can't skip until we watch 15 seconds. She's 3.5, right? 15 seconds is 3 hours to her. So what's your best practice? Okay, if you have a case for this type of inventory, which makes a lot of sense as a brand, what are best practices so that we don't disrupt and we protect that brand's integrity? Then again,
Um,
advertising is disruptive, but anyway, you know what I mean.
yeah, yeah. I would say that's the number one conflict we have sometimes
Yeah.
that the brands or agencies is that you really want authenticity, right? You don't want to be
Right.
like in a World of Warcraft or whatever game it is, like that's set in medieval
Mhm.
times and like have a picture of Coke. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
It looks out of place. It would be bad for the brand.
Yeah.
And we've seen experience like that. The
Yeah.
best advice I could give for anyone who's a
Mhm.
brand advertiser is
Mhm.
work closely with the people who either make the games, like either like ourselves or the game makers themselves in
Mhm.
scenarios. So you want to have an experience that is fluid, that feels natural. And I mean, we've had situations where a brand's like, why don't we do X, Y, and Z? Like, that is a horrible idea. And sometimes they force it and it's a horrible experience. And like,
Yeah.
oh, we should have listened to you. So it's
Mhm.
really listen to the experts, find something that makes sense, find something that aligns with your brand, but you don't want it so intrusive that
Mhm.
you know it's just so obvious, right?
Yeah.
We work with like clients like Roblox or Outfit 7 or Pop
Mhm.
Tropica. We work with all kinds of like these metaverse where we're doing these experiential things. And
Mhm.
when done correctly, it's amazing, right? You change a character to
I
look like
bet
the
it makes sense.
player.
Totally
Yeah.
makes sense.
So if done right, it's great.
Mhm.
And again, it's picking the right partner, right? I mean, a lot of people claim to do these things and sometimes they can, sometimes they can't. So, yeah, you gotta, like anything else in life, you gotta pick the right partner.
Okay, let me ask this one last question, even though the last question was the last question for the last 3 minutes. But
Sure.
how important is creative messaging then? Because again, when I hear gaming inventory, I think about that okay, 320 by 50, right? It's that little ass right here. And sometimes you can't even read it, you can't even see it. So
Mhm.
like how creative has become like messaging has become on gaming now? Outside of the interstitial, outside of like the what was it, the reward points?
Rewarded video, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I think messaging is always important, right? You always want to have some kind of CTA or call to action, right?
Yeah.
We did a campaign recently. I'll exclude the brand's name, but
Mhm.
very different results. And they didn't understand why, and we couldn't understand why. I mean, materially different click rates, lifts, efficiencies, conversion rates, and it literally one was an offer and one was not.
Mm,
And the one with the offer did really well, and the
right.
one obviously, it's basic. It's
Mhm.
basics, it's fundamentals. But sometimes we forget that. We get like, we try to be I'm always like, I'm a big advocate of keep it simple, stupid, right? Try to keep it as
Uh,
simple as humanly possible. When you try to get too abstract, I find the messaging gets lost. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But
mhm.
you really need to have an amazing agency or creative talent to
Yeah.
get that across properly.
Got it. I agree with you about the keep it simple. I like to say that us as consumers are extremely lazy. So you got to make it very easy for me to get where I need to be instead of anything else. If it's too complicated, I drop, you know. If it's too slow, I drop too. That's another point too. So let's pivot into our closing segments here. What are three things you really want people to remember about our conversation?
But our conversation,
Yeah, about our conversation. So think about the person managing the campaigns, think about the ad ops. Like, what is three things they should take action on this knowledge, which is we talk about brand safety, we talk about what it means to be in the gaming world, we talk about
you know
women.
what? You're kind of setting me up here because no, no, in a good way, because
Mhm.
these three words really encompass everything that we're focusing on in 2024 from a
Nice.
business perspective. So
Tell
these
us.
words align seamlessly with what I'm about to say, which is really
Okay.
whoever you're working with or whatever you're doing, you really want to look for three primary things.
Okay.
First one, quality,
Quality,
right? You
get it.
want to make sure you're dealing with, we talked about, viewability and
Quality is
IVT and
important. Yeah.
FA. Hey, am I working both with quality and with a quality firm?
Mm-hmm.
Is it performant? So
Quality
quality,
performance.
performance, and transparency are the three words that we're
Mm.
focusing on for this year.
Yeah.
So quality, is it performant? And performance could be many things, and we talked about this, right? Like, is it
Mhm.
viewable?
Yeah.
What's the click rate? What's is it, low IVT, all the metrics you want. And
Mhm.
lastly, transparency.
Mhm.
What am I actually buying? What are the things I'm getting out of it? Am I getting the reports I need? is it going where it's supposed to go?
Mhm,
Um, is
mhm,
it being seen?
mhm,
So
mhm.
quality, performance, and transparency.
And once you have quality, performance should follow through fairly well, and transparency. So it's like it's almost like a triangle I see. It's
Mhm.
like if you have one, you should have the other two, should you done the right thing. And if you don't, at least you know what to work with. But man, that's so genius. Um, and what is one thing and I ask this question with every guest because I'm really curious, but what is one thing you wish you knew then that you now know? Think about what would you tell your freshman self just starting in this industry? Yo, you need to understand this in order to get to where you are more efficiently, more effectively, faster, whatever.
I learned this a little bit later on, but
Mhm.
being a leader, you always have to, I guess there's two things. One, you always have to be a lifelong learner.
Amen.
The animal I was when I started the company, meaning, I was probably hot-headed, just no work-life balance.
Mhm.
But you need to then, as the company grows, you need to grow with it. And I was lucky enough to have some very good mentors along the way.
Nice.
My old COO, his name is Christian Blanco. Love
Mhm.
this man to death. Uh, was so instrumental in taking me and molding me from like what I would say an entrepreneur to an executive. And you really need to be a different person, is the first thing I'd say, and really just action. We have
Mhm.
I have a saying, or actually, we have a saying in our company, and it's really, knowledge thinks, wisdom speaks, action wins. You just
Mhm.
gotta have constantly be moving forward, nonstop, and just get shit done.
Yeah, I love how this code says like knowledge is power, but I don't think so. I think actionable knowledge is power. If you don't activate on this knowledge, like it's almost like it's just catching dust, right? It's like
Yeah.
you got to take action. I absolutely love that. And I see books behind you. Like I'm a big book person. So what do you think our next read should be?
If you haven't already,
Hmm.
have you read Great by Choice by Jim Collins?
No, great
That
by
is
choice.
my
Okay,
favorite
okay, okay,
favorite book.
okay.
Um, if you're an entrepreneur or running a company,
Hmm.
there's a book called Traction. It stands for, and it's basically something called EOS, Entrepreneur Operating System.
Hmm.
And it's pretty basic fundamentals and stuff a lot of us know, but it kind of puts it in a way, in a format that's very digestible and makes it very easy for you to kind of understand your business, which I absolutely love.
Yeah, okay,
Uh,
okay.
and if you just want a simple read, it's like just a great book for, quick, few day read. It's called The Go Giver. And it's just a great story about, business.
Okay.
Those are my three books.
All right. Well, thank you so much for dropping by. If anybody needs to reach out to you, how can they do so?
You can reach me at letter J, Dubin, Dubin, at
Mhm.
playwire.com. See, easy to remember, Playwire.
It is very, very easy to remember. And all of Jason's information will be in the show notes or on this YouTube description box right below you. Again, if you're listening, make sure you drop us a thumbs up. Make sure you show us some love on social media. And then again, I'll have all of Jason's Playwire's information, including their LinkedIn. And so thank you again, Jason, for stopping by. Anything else you want to leave us with?
No, Helen, this has been great. Really appreciate it. And yeah, I look forward to future podcasts. And I'm gonna become an avid follower. So thank you.
Thank you so much for dropping by.
Thank you.